At the core of the presentation, we'll answer the most common questions that have come up at other town hall events and from folks emailing in. After these prepared remarks, I will represent all of you by asking one at a time of the panelists the questions that have come in through the survey tool that was sent out. If there are any follow-up questions that are inspired by their responses to those questions that came in earlier, please save that to the end of their presentation. When we're all done addressing those issues, if there are other things that come up, either from you all or come in on the internet, we'll address those at the end. And then, if something else occurs to you after the 12 o'clock hour, which is when we'd like to wrap it up, should email Ms. Boland directly or someone else at the home office with your question. So the goal here is for communication, open communication, and to have the most positive thing we can have this coming season.
All right, so we're going to see how this works, see if I can do the PowerPoint and talk and stand at the same time. So as you know, I'm Leanne Boland. I'm the Executive Director of FIRST Chesapeake. And thank you also to Blacksburg High School for hosting this event. And thank you all for giving us your Saturday to come out here and be with us. So because of our geography, it's really hard for us, it's been really hard for us to have these town halls as often as we would like. But the response that we had to our first town hall was very positive. I hope that we continue to have that type of response. Our hope is to continue to have these type of town halls, at least a pre-season town hall in the future. So I don't want to take up too much of your time talking about myself, but I will give you a little background. I've been with Virginia First, or First Chesapeake, for over 10 years. For the past 2+ years, I've been the Executive Director and Chief Fundraising Officer for First Chesapeake. And I will be the first to admit to you that juggling those two jobs, it hasn't been easy. And so I am very happy to announce, and y'all are the first ones that are going to hear this, that we have a development director who's starting on Monday. Her name is Katarina Spears. She goes by Kat. And she has lots of experience with fundraising, over 20 years of experience working in nonprofits. So we are very, very happy to have Kat coming on board. Kat is just one of several kind of staffing changes that we are having this season. We are also changing around some of our staffing roles, and we'll talk about that later too, because we just think that that is going to make us a stronger organization. On a more personal note, some of you already know that I have a son who is a product of FTC. He attended Virginia Tech. Yay. And because of FIRST, and he has told me this, he was able to land 2 incredible internships while he was in college, one with the incredible Henry Bass. And he's now gainfully employed and paying his own rent, which is great. So we all have our reasons for wanting to be a part of FIRST Chesapeake, and one of my main reasons is because I would like to share this experience with others, this very positive experience that my son and that our family had. So I'm going to start off with this PowerPoint, and please bear with me. The PowerPoint has some general information in it, but it also has information that we pulled from your RSVP forms where you had questions. So you'll hopefully see where we've answered some of your questions here, but then Michael also has some questions from the survey forms that he will follow up with after we finish. So here we go. Let's try this. I learned at the last one that this is not a touch screen. So, so more than just robots, I wanted to just kind of start off with the values, philosophy, and mission of FIRST Chesapeake. FIRST Chesapeake values, I know you've seen this before. the main thing that I really wanted to focus on today is teamwork, because I think that's really the basis of how we are going to continue to grow, how we are going to make ourselves a stronger organization. Of course, First Chesapeake's mission, we support the mission of First. Again, you're all familiar with this, but I just wanted to put it up there. And then there's the First Chesapeake philosophy. And this was a philosophy that was shared with us at our partners conference up at headquarters in June. It's assume positive intent. We are all here because we want to be a part of this organization. We see the value of this organization. So we just need to remember that when we're talking to each other, when things get a little crazy, when we think that somebody's idea is not quite on track with what we're thinking. We just need to understand and remember that we all have a very positive intent when we are talking about and working in this organization. I'll give you an example of how positive intent worked for us between the program partners, because there were a lot of questions that came from you about how the program partners are going to work together. For years, and I'm sure there are people who've been here a whole lot longer than I have, for years there had been talk about the continuum of programs, the K through 12 programs, the progression of programs, breaking down the silos between the programs. We kept on hearing all this, but we weren't really getting any instruction on how to do that. And to kind of add to the mix, 4 years ago, we moved to the district model. So that meant that we also had to incorporate the regions of DC, Maryland, and Virginia all under one umbrella. So it was one of these things where we had been told we had to work together, but we couldn't figure out how to do it. And Nick Swain at JMU, at Virginia DC FLL, deserves a whole lot of credit, because Nick was the one who took the first step. And he reached out to the partners. We all agreed to assume positive intent, and we've been working together ever since. Now, it wasn't always smooth sailing. I'll be the first to admit that. But as the years have gone by, the conversations have gotten easier. And I can tell you that the relationship between these program partners is stronger. I will just tell you, for those of you who don't know, the 4 program partners are Virginia DC FLL, STEM Action, which is FTC in Maryland and FTC in DC, and University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is FLL in Maryland, and us. So those are the 4 partners. Today, the 4 partners work together. We meet annually to discuss shared resources, program strategies, best practices, and also collaborative fundraising. We've worked together to bring scores of new FLL and FTC teams into the First Chesapeake District through Amazon HQ2 for this season. And we are collaborating to bring FIRST programs into all 168 school districts in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area in the next couple of years. So anyway, that's just an example of positive intent, that we all realized that we had a common goal, even though we had been different organizations, and we are working together now. So as we go through today and go through the season, let's just all try to remember that we're here because we want to see First Chesapeake succeed, I hope, and assume positive intent. Alrighty. Our impact. You can see the numbers here, and I'm sure you've seen it before. Over 7,000 kids reached every year. We have over 100,000 live feed views. These are unique live feed views in March and April. We have over 3,400 volunteers now, which I think is just incredible. And then these are just some stories. I know you've heard them all before, but Norm Marshall, he was a fantastic coach at a Richmond City Public School, Franklin Military Academy. How did I do that? Sorry. Gula Gambier, he's one of our board members. He's also a volunteer. You'll see him as a judge. You'll see him at lots of our competitions. Katie Kasiba, who was our first recipient of our Outstanding Women in STEM Scholarship Award last year. And I just love her quote. I think it's so cute. And then I have to show you, if you look at the name at the bottom, this is my son. If you look at the cake, it says "Congrats, Boogie," because that's what we've always called him, but he goes by Liam. And this is just his testimonial. He did those 2 internships, and he's now working at Accenture Federal up in Arlington, and we're really proud of him. And David Keegan. David is incredible. David is not only an alumni, he's not only a volunteer, he also was an advocate within his company, which is Hamilton Beach. So Hamilton Beach not only now supplies volunteers for some of our events, but they also have supplied funding and all of the coffee pots that you see at our events. So if you are having a cup of coffee, thank David and Hamilton Beach, please. Except for today, because we borrowed that from the principal today. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Okay. She's looking out for me. um, so this is our programs. First Chesapeake programs. I know you can all read this for yourself, but I did want to go to the last line at the bottom that says all 4 partners currently serve over 1,800 teams. Again, the 4 partners have been working very hard to grow and sustain FIRST teams in the 168 school districts in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And to do this, we've applied jointly for capacity building funds to support additional staff and resources, but this will be for the next year. One thing that I'm very proud of is that we've also secured over $150,000 in Amazon HQ2 funds to support rookie FLL and FTC's teams in the DC metro area. Those funds also are to support veteran teams in that area who are interested in mentoring those new FTC and FLL teams. We realize that there are only 2 full-time staff people with FIRST Chesapeake, and there's just no way that we are going to be able to get these teams up and running and keep them running without the support of these mentor teams. So that's one thing that we have started. We've also started coordinating with all the 4 partners so we can share our resources with these teams. So it could be that there is a new FLL team in Washington, D.C. that's starting up, which is Virginia, D.C. FLL Partners, and there is an FTC team in Maryland that is administered by USRA STEM Action. Those 2 teams would be working together to support that FLL team. So again, it's just something else that we are doing with all 4 programs to make us a much stronger overall FIRST organization. So first, robotics competition. That's just some facts and figures about us. And then, and tell me if I'm flipping through these too fast. Here are some questions from the survey. One was, please discuss the status of interdistrict play for the 2020 season. And that's an easy answer and kind of a hard answer. It is our understanding from FIRST headquarters, we don't have anything in writing, but it is our understanding from FIRST headquarters that the interdistrict play discussion has kind of been tabled right now because of this ecosystem project that FIRST has undertaken. And we'll talk about the ecosystem a little bit later. But right now it seems like the interdistrict play is not going to happen this season. And then address concerns regarding cheesecaking. So my apologies to the person who asked this question. I now know that this is an actual term. Having worked in fundraising and administration at FIRST Chesapeake, I was not aware of all of the terms that were going on with the competitions and stuff. But I have the definition now. I know what it is. And the short answer is that we've received from headquarters is that teams can no longer build or loan prefabricated attachments to other teams. That is our understanding, so it sounds like that is how they are addressing that problem. And then how many FRC teams will advance to World Championship? I wish I knew. Right now, that is up to headquarters. Headquarters has not told us. They will probably tell everyone late December. They have to tell us in January. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for that. So First Tech Challenge, here's just some stats on us for there. And some questions. How many FTC teams will advance to Worlds? I can answer that. That's 8. And then how will FTC be elevated to the same level as FRC? FTC is very important to us. This past year we had 185 registered FTC teams. We understand that FTC is more economical, and it is easier to integrate into some of these programs. So it is very important to us. We definitely try to keep it at the level as FRC. And if somebody has any follow-up questions to that at the end of this, I'll be glad to try and answer them for you. And then there was another question about the breakdown of the FTC teams. And FIRST doesn't share, excuse me, a whole lot of this information with us, at least not now. We're getting better at this. So I can't tell you the average age of the team members or anything like that. But I can give you this breakdown that 8% of the FTC teams are from under-resourced schools or communities. And then there was also a question about how many FTC teams are community-based, private school-based, or public school-based. And I apologize, the slide should, instead of say schools, it should say public schools. That just gives you an idea of where those are. Volunteers. Sarah is going to talk to you more about volunteers later, but this is just a slide to kind of give you an idea of where we are. Again, over 3,400 volunteers, yay, and volunteers are the lifeblood of our organization, so thank you so much. We would not be here without our volunteers, that is for sure. And then financials. Financials, we raised about $1 million and we spent about $1 million. That is about how we are every year. Almost 70% of our income comes from grants and sponsorships. That is unusual for a nonprofit. Usually it's not that high a percentage, but that is the way the FIRST model works. I did want to point out that about 13% of our income comes from FIRST headquarters, and just take a moment to explain that. All of the team registrations for FTC and FRC go to headquarters. All of the event registrations, competition registrations for FRC go to FIRST headquarters. So in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, for FIRST Chesapeake, over $1 million goes to FIRST headquarters every year, and about $130,000 comes back to us. So that is how we come up with that number. Now we do get to keep the registration fees for the FTC qualifiers, but just wanted to let you know that that's where we are. And that's when I talk about sponsors later on. I want you to understand how important it is when we're working with our sponsors. Over on the expenses, please note that 85% is team services and growth, with 8% for general operating. So we'd gotten questions about what's the future, what are the plans for FIRST Chesapeake? And I can't talk about that without talking about the FIRST ecosystem. So FIRST FIRST realized about a year ago, a little over a year ago, that they had way too many program partners who weren't communicating with each other. FIRST has over 200 program partners that they have to deal with, and we all have different agreements, which is really weird. And just in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, like I said, we do FTC in Virginia, FRC in Virginia, DC, and Maryland. Virginia DC FLL does FLL Junior and FLL in Virginia and DC. USRA STEM Action does FTC in DC and Maryland and FLL Junior in Maryland, and UMBC does FLL in Maryland. So, yeah. So they realized that's a problem, right? So they decided to go do this ecosystem study so they could figure out how to make this more of a streamlined operation, and also just to make our story easier to tell. I mean, can you imagine trying to tell that to the public? You know, yeah, and how to tell it to a sponsor? Oh my gosh! So anyway, they've started the ecosystem project. So this is the ecosystem project will improve program delivery. Again, you know, it's pretty much streamlining communications, making our story easier to tell while supporting program growth. And also, I should point out that FIRST is talking about changing that funding model that they have right now, where we receive, where we get about 13% of our budget from them. They're talking about changing that, so hopefully that'll go up a little bit. They did identify 4 major problems as part of this study that they will be addressing. And then this just tells you what the program partners they're hoping the program partners will see. And then they did identify partnership objectives for us. This is what, as program partners, we are hopefully going to be able to do once this ecosystem study is in place or being implemented. The thing I really wanted to point out to you are the 3 leadership structure types. So this ecosystem is going to have one of these 3, and they're hoping to have whatever ours is identified by the end of December. One leadership type is a single organization managing all the programs, and that's like Pacific Northwest, where from FLL Junior all the way through FRC, there's one organization that runs it. There's the peer leader program delivery partner, and that's where you keep all of your existing program partners, but you identify one program partner as the lead who is going to facilitate communications with headquarters, probably be the lead fundraiser in all of this, and just work together to make sure everybody is on the same track, that we're all strategizing and working together. And then the third type is the first employee managing the activities. That's not going to happen very often, but that would probably happen in smaller places like Alabama. I can't say for sure, but we've been given the impression that probably 2 is what we are going to be. So we would still have different program partners, but we would have a lead partner who would facilitate communications and help with the fundraising. We do not know who that lead partner would be. That has not been identified yet, but FIRST has said that they would work with all of the partners to identify this and hopefully announce it by the end of December. So lessons learned. Bear with me. I am sorry. This is going to be a really long slide. But we learned a lot this year. We learned that teams and volunteers want a more constructive voice in the organization. So after the 2019 championship, several coaches and volunteers came to me and asked if they could start an advisory committee to provide insight on the needs and concerns of FIRST Chesapeake from a team perspective and from a volunteer perspective. I don't think we have anybody from do we have? We do? Yay! Okay, so we have your representative from the advisory committee here today. Can y'all give them a hand of applause because they came to us and offered us a solution, right? And this is great. We have a list of all of our team advisory members and their contact information on our website. It's under About Us. So if you have any questions, concerns, make sure you reach out to them because they meet once a month and they bring these things back to us. The local committees desired more autonomy. And believe me, since First Chesapeake only has 2 full-time staff people, we understand and appreciate this. Um, we we realize that if we are going to continue to grow, we're going to continue to grow more events. We definitely need to have the local committees have more authority to make decisions. And really, I mean, who knows the people in your community better than you do? So we feel that it's very important to give the committees more autonomy, and also to make sure that they're very clear guidelines, not just for the committee, but clear guidelines for us too, so we don't overstep our bounds, and so everybody knows really what their roles are. One of the things that we've done to better serve the local committees is we've changed our staffing model for this year. For the past 2 years, we've had one staff person who has been responsible for working with all local committees for like 20 events. So this year, the new staffing model splits the role of the First Chesapeake point of contact for these local committees between Sarah, who is going to be working mostly in Virginia, and Ron Therian, who's going to be working with the events in Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland. And so Sarah's going to talk a little bit more about some of the things we're doing with the local committees, but I just wanted to let you know that we have changed the staffing model, so hopefully we can better serve you and you can get more of our time with 2 people. There's a desire to streamline communications, and again, the Team Advisory Committee has been tremendous help with this. This season, you will see some new team tabs on the website. This is to help teams cut through some of the public details and get to the real meat of what they need to know, like load in and all of that, lunch orders, all of that. And then teams wanted to have more of a presence in our newsletters, which is fabulous. So if you haven't gotten it yet, you should be getting it soon. Samantha Ellis is going to be sending out a constant contact email to everybody with the details about how teams can submit information for our newsletter and our deadlines and all of that. And just going back to the website, the tabs, they are in the process of being worked right now, being created. We probably won't have them in place until December, though. And then finally, we recognize the need for clear channels of communications between teams and volunteers in First Chesapeake. So this goes back to teamwork. I want to make it clear that First Chesapeake staff is always willing and eager to answer questions or discuss ideas, talk through your concerns. Our contact information is on the website. Again, it's under About Us. It has our emails and it has our cell phone numbers. So please, if you have a question, if you have an idea, please contact us. We want to hear from you. But do keep in mind that the majority of our staff, like Sarah, are only part-time. We do try to respond within 24 hours during the work week, but we may not be able to respond to you if you email us at 10 o'clock on a Friday night until Monday morning. So also with communications, First Chesapeake's general mode of communication to all is constant contact, and I'm really, really sorry. I just apologize up front, but it's the best system we've got. I also hear this time of year from everybody, we're getting too many emails. And again, we've got over 12,000 contacts, and this list has just kind of grown over the years. We have different lists, and people have opted into different lists, and so sometimes it seems like you shouldn't be getting it, but somehow you got on this particular list. We are going to try not to send as many emails this year, but next year is probably when you're going to see the real change, when we are going to be able to actually concentrate on these lists and cull them down and make them more logical. We have the First Chesapeake blog that we've used to communicate with people for the past few years. This was something that was recommended by the teams a few years ago. We're going to revisit it after this year. We've gotten mixed reviews on that, and so again, we would love for you to contact the Team Advisory Committee and let them know what you think of the blog so we can kind of consolidate that information and make an informed decision. And then First Chesapeake, when it communicates, also posts select information on Facebook and on Twitter. In the past, some of our staff has also been parts of closed forums, and they have answered questions about First Chesapeake on the closed forums, but we are no longer going to do that. As of this month, we will no longer address policy or engage in First Chesapeake discussions on closed social media forums, and I can talk about that in a little bit. Again, I talked about the First Chesapeake website and how it will include additional information. We'll also have resources pages for folks or for teams on that website, so it's not just event. So if you have questions, concerns, ideas, just remember, please reach out to us. Let us know. Reach out to your team advisory committee, because that's what they're here for. We really want to work with you to find a solution and to, again, make us a better and stronger organization. So the need to remind everyone to practice gracious professionalism. And I know everybody knows this, but that definition, it's a way of doing things that encourages high quality work, emphasizes the value of others, and respects individuals and the community. And this is something that we are re-emphasizing with our staff this year. But it's also something that everyone involved in FIRST needs to remember, that when everything gets crazy and they're not going the way that maybe we had planned, we all need to step back and remember that we're all here for the same reason. Again, positive intent, that we want to make this the best experience for the students. And because we all love being a part of this organization. So necessity of own/improved AV systems. We have heard you. Gabe, is this the last time we're using this microphone, or? Okay, this is the last time we're using this microphone. More have been ordered, so we do have our own AV systems now, and we are upgrading some of the stuff from last year, so it will be a better experience for everyone. And then what teams are looking for in the FRC Championship venue? So was everybody here at at our district championship last year? So when we announced Hampton Roads, everybody kind of saw like the look on everybody else's face. We really did have a reason for that, but we hadn't made it clear. And again, this goes back to communication. I really appreciated folks reaching out to me and saying, we don't understand. We're okay with it, but we really don't understand why you chose Hampton Roads. And the team advisory committee had been very good about bringing that to our attention this summer. We asked for input from the teams to find out really what is important about championship, because we have certain things we have to check off, and you'll see a list of it in a minute. We have certain things that we have to check off for all of our events. It has to meet certain criteria. But we had these ideas about what the teams wanted, and one of my ideas, which was completely wrong, was that teams wanted to be in a different location every year. That for it to be equitable, we needed to have it in Maryland one year, in Virginia the next year, and then maybe in like Central Virginia another year. And it turns out that that was not the case. The majority of the teams said they were okay with having it in the same location 2 years in a row, because there is some comfort in knowing where the best pizza place is, what hotel is clean and affordable. So we are definitely going to take that into consideration. We're looking at venues right now for 2021. So we're definitely going to take that into consideration. There were some other things that the teams talked about that we just have no control over, and I apologize, but we can't control the prices of the concession stands, and sometimes we can't even control whether you can bring water into the event. It is just one of those things that it's on a venue by venue basis. And then the need for transparency regarding FIRST Chesapeake policies. Like I said before, this year has been a learning experience, and it hasn't always been easy. But please know that the staff and our board is taking all of this feedback very seriously, and we are talking about this. We are keeping this in mind as we move forward. One of the things that came up this year was the loaning of equipment, and there was quite a bit of conversation and criticism of First Chesapeake on some closed social media forums regarding this, and so I just want to address it here. We do have a brand new AV system. It cost us over $30,000. And there was a discussion about whether we should be able to loan this equipment to other organizations when we were not using it for a fee, if we would be able to loan this. And we did not probably answer the way we should. We were not clear. So just let me make it clear. There are other districts that do loan equipment out. I went ahead and spoke to all of them. The majority don't because of the cost, but there are two. One uses a system that is antiquated and they don't use it at their events anymore, so it doesn't matter if it gets broken. The other one is a very loose agreement. They don't even really have like MOU. Both of these districts that currently loan AV equipment to other organizations said they are revisiting it this year. So they are not going to be doing the same thing next year. So again, since it was such a huge investment for us, because $30,000 is a lot of money, we wanted to make sure that we had researched these best practices before we offered to loan stuff out to people. And also we wanted to make sure that we were okay from a liability standpoint, not only from what our insurance would cover, but also how quickly could that money turn around, because if something did happen and something fell on our system and we lost $15,000 worth of equipment, we don't have $15,000 in our budget to buy it back before one of our events. So we did say that we would revisit this next season, but right now it is just not a good idea for us to do that. The scheduling of events. Each season we work through a puzzle of venues. It has to do with availability. It has to do with geography. We try to make sure that events are convenient to as many teams as possible. On weekends when there are two events, we try to make sure that they're far enough apart so we can hit different pockets of teams that might be competing. And while we try to take into consideration other events that teams may want to attend, like off-season events or other workshops, we can't base First Chesapeake's competition schedule on avoiding conflicts with other non-First Chesapeake run events. So it's wonderful that we have so many opportunities in the STEM community that we're doubling up on weekends, like we did this weekend with Battle of Baltimore. But we have to do the schedule according to what fits First Chesapeake and what fits our venues. Social media, again, First Chesapeake staff will no longer address or discuss First Chesapeake policies on closed social media forums, and we're doing this for 3 reasons. 1, closed forums are exactly that. They're closed. It's not a way to share information with everyone. I know this is not new to anyone, but social media tends to dehumanize participants. I mean, how many times have y'all read or seen or maybe even posted yourself something on social media and then thought, oh my gosh, would you have ever said that to that person's face? Because we're talking about people here. So it's not only unproductive to address these things in these closed forums, but it's really downright unhealthy sometimes with some of the comments that start circulating. And then the third is participating in closed forums doesn't encourage the sharing of ideas. There's data out there that shows that for every 5 people who participate in a closed forum, 4 hold the same ideas and values. And so this doesn't really make it a discussion. It's just a discussion of everybody who agrees with everybody. So this doesn't promote a consensus, and it doesn't even prove a majority. So those are our 3 reasons. We had been asked to clarify that after our last meeting. So, vision for the future. this is our vision for the future. It's very basic. Again, a lot of it hinges on what FIRST is going to be doing with this ecosystem model. But our board did identify this goal for us. There are, again, as I said before, 168 school districts in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, and we have a presence in about 65% of those. What our board and also the other program partners in the area have agreed is that we are going to try and have at least a FIRST presence, if not a full presence of FIRST in all of the schools, at least have a presence in each school district. And then sponsors. Y'all are great. Everybody in here is great in working with sponsors in this area. So I'm just going to kind of blow through this because I don't even think y'all need it. But this is what sponsorships do. It is very important. Like I said, it's almost 70% of our budget. This is what they don't do, and I have actually had conversations with people about this. They think that we buy really expensive food we spend all of our money. There was $5,000 sponsorship means that the people in the VIP suite get $5,000 worth of food, and that's not the way it works. Most of the money goes back into the program. And then, what sponsors want? They want recognition as a good corporate citizen. That means signage. That means being told thank you. That means being in the program, being on our live feed, having a chance to speak to the teams at opening ceremonies. They want a chance for their employees to feel like they're a part of an event in their community or a team. I mean, we all want to feel like we're a part of something, right? They also use it as workforce development. They want to educate FIRST team members about their internships and future careers. And then you just think about it, why do you give, right? It feels good to give. All right, here's another big question that we got. Event location selection. This is what we take into consideration when we look at our venues for our events. And this isn't just for our championship, this is for FTC and FRC, okay? So that's the list. And then this is just a list of all of the competitions that we have. And I wanted to specifically address the district championship at Hampton Roads. So Hampton Roads pretty much checked all of the boxes. I know it seemed like kind of a wonky idea when we announced it to everybody, but we did have to keep it secret until after the championship. But they demonstrated an interest in being the host for this. Newport News Shipbuilding is an incredible sponsor. In addition to the funding they give us as a sponsor, they also are incredible volunteers. They are, as you see, they give a lot of money back to the teams. And they give a lot of money back to other STEM-based organizations in the area. Again, they have a strong volunteer pool. They provide more than a third of all volunteers for the Portsmouth event that we have every year, the district event. You can see the other things that they do. They organize our technology row. They are just incredible. The shipyard is just a wonderful partner. If you look at the Hampton Coliseum, has anybody been to the Hampton Coliseum other than me? You know it's called the mothership, right? Yeah. Well, that's Fish called it the mothership. Yeah. It's not beautiful, but it does have ample free parking. It is enormous. It is easy access to Interstate 64. I mean, it is right off 64. Lots of rooms, lots of places that we can do some new stuff. There are a number of really good hotels that are within walking distance of the Coliseum, and I mean it really is within walking distance. You don't have to get in your car. But let me tell you, they're filling up. So I think Kristen sent out an email a couple of weeks ago about some of those hotels. I would highly recommend, even though we are still working on contracts with Experian, I I would highly recommend that you look into booking your hotels if you want to be close to the Hampton Coliseum. There are plenty of other nice hotels in the area, but this is within walking distance. There's an incredible new mall across the street from the Coliseum, so there are plenty of restaurants and stuff. And then, of course, one of the major things that I always consider when it comes down to anything that involves First Chesapeake is the cost. And so the rental fee for the Coliseum was much less than what it was at the University of Maryland a few years ago. And it's comparable to what we had at George Mason, but it's so much larger. The support from the community has been incredible. If you get off the 64 right at the Hampton Coliseum, they've got a big electronic billboard. They're going to be putting our robotics competition up on that electronic billboard a couple of months in advance, so all of the public is going to know that this is happening. They're going to be working with us on social media. We are working with some of the folks about lodging. It's just, they've just been really supportive. And then finally, additional funds for team support. The Hampton Coliseum floor plan allows for 16 additional teams to compete in 2020. First headquarters came up with this idea to promote team growth. And the way that they encouraged us to grow our teams was for every FRC team that registered after the 64th team to register, we would receive that competition fee back. So right now we don't get any of that money that goes to headquarters for the first 64 teams that register. For this event only, we will receive the competition fee back. So that comes out to $64,000 that First Chesapeake will receive this year that we have not received any other year. And that is going to go directly back into team services. So it was a revenue generator, but it's also a great way to introduce more teams to the excitement of a championship. So finally, thank you for bearing with me on this. I saved the question that everyone is asked to last, and that's how can we work together? I wanted to leave this to the end just because it's going to seem like a really simple answer, but it is that we can follow these tenets of gracious professionalism, assume positive intent, be respectful of each other, and always assume positive intent. Use the correct channels to bring ideas, questions, and concerns to us, and be willing to be a part of the solution. Never hesitate to reach out to any of us or the team advisory. We really do want to hear from you. And understand that we're all doing this because we want to be a part of something good, something that's making a difference in the lives of today's youth, but also making a difference in the lives of all of us for the future. And I'm just going to pop these up real quick. This is the list of the FIRST Robotics Competition Advisory Committee, but again, it is also on our website under About Us. This is the list of FIRST Chesapeake staff. Kristen Clemens and I are I keep on talking about the 2 full-time staff. Kristen and I are the 2 full-time staff. The rest of these folks are part-time or very, very part-time. And the development director is going to be Katarina Spears. I'm sorry I did not update that, but it is going to be updated on the website. And then our FIRST Chesapeake Foundation Board. All of these folks are very dedicated. They are very engaged in our conversations that we have every other month in our board meetings. Please don't hesitate to speak to them as well. And that is the end. So thank you all for bearing with us, and I'm going to hand this over to Michael.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to go ahead and hit you with some questions that have come in. The first one is, how is First Chesapeake working to get local event volunteer coordinators trained and better supported?
We're very fortunate in this area to have Isabel coming back in FTC as a volunteer coordinator, and Lisa coming back also. And that brings a tremendous, the more years we have and the more experience we have, the better we are at knowing our community and knowing our volunteers and getting them trained. So very fortunate to have both of y'all coming back. We are in the process, and I know Leanne spoke to it, of getting better documentation and role clarification that will help with knowing what to focus on and the different roles. And the other thing that Leanne also spoke to is some of the staff alignment and changes, which will hopefully provide better support in that area.
Secondarily, how can teams work together to support each other? How can local teams communicate with each other?
You skipped question number 2. Yeah, that's why I was taking a sip of water and not paying attention. Um, how can teams work together to support each other, and how can local teams communicate with each other? So probably most of you already know that FIRST headquarters will not allow us to just share team communication lists, not even with other teams. So there are a couple of ways that teams can work together. One is to work with your team advisory member who is in your area to see if you can figure out a way to just kind of bring everybody together, to discuss ideas, to see how you can partner with veteran teams, rookie teams. Another thing is, and we just kind of came up with this once we saw the question, but I hope it's a good idea, and we'd love to hear your feedback on it. A lot of teams have a generic email address, so it's like team 830 at gmail.com. If we could get you to, if you don't already have it, get you to create that generic team email for us, and after this is over, we're going to send a wrap up to everybody. If you could create that, we will give you a link of the form to fill out, which is going to be really easy. It's going to be like team number and your email. We will put together a list, and of course, you're agreeing that email is okay to share. We will share that list. We will have it on our website. We will have it broken out by geography, so you will be able to communicate with each other better, I would hope. And again, if you have other ideas about how to do this, we are happy to hear that. Mm-hmm.
So one of the toughest part is when we have kids, correct? Somebody, parents says, "Hey, I'm interested," and they are not yet in the system, correct? So you got a single a kid that says, "How can I join an FLL team?" Correct? FRC teams, FTC teams, there is a lot less. We know who they are. It's a little bit easier to put in contact, but the FLL is super hard because we don't have a good way to say who is, correct? So, and that's the pipeline. So whatever we can do to get this information, so here's where you can ask, or to help connect individuals. If I got a group of folks that says, I want to make an FLL team, I know what the answer is. Here's your robot, get started. If I got a single kid, we're struggling to find what team is still looking for members.
Thank you, Frankie.
Yeah, just to follow up with that, of course I can't speak for Nick and for UMBC, but part of the ecosystem is addressing that, making it easier to connect the public with teams or with other like-minded people who want to start a team. So that is something that will be coming down the road. But believe me, I hear you. We do get the calls all the time about, or my team is just folded. Where does my kid go? So we get it too.
I'll ask the other question, number 2 now. How is FIRST Chesapeake working to get information about event venues, lodging, and dining options to teams in a more timely manner?
So reliance on the committee. So this is where the committees are going to become integral in getting this information out there. We are the new team tab that will be out on the website for FRC. We are putting it out for FRC this year if it goes well. Knock on wood. FTC. For FTC, we got to think about that. We got to see what ideas we have to get FTC, to get the lodging and stuff out there. So I know with the team tab is going to help solve some of the problems with FRC. And so the committee will have to work within the committees to figure out the best venue because people don't want more emails. So we're trying to get the information out there, but be mindful of the number of emails also. So I guess
Thank you. Yes. Next question is also for Sarah. How can we, or how are we improving volunteer selection and recruitment?
Great question. And so we have made some changes based on a lot of feedback, and my volunteer coordinators have been very honest and open, and I really appreciate that from them to say, this is where we can improve, this is how we can do better. One of the things we did is I did send out a form stack or a Google form, depending on which program, to ask all of the volunteers which roles they were interested in, to try and cast a wider net to find out what volunteers want to move into other positions, who want to grow, who are happy where they are, and that type of stuff. So we are encouraging a lot of the volunteers to try. We're trying to change the culture from where do we need a volunteer. I heard a lot of, when I was talking to the volunteers out in the field, well, but you always needed me here. I've got to be in this role because this is, and so I'm trying to say a lot more, where would you like to be? Because a happy volunteer, first off, recruits more volunteers, but comes back, and that's what we need. We need volunteers to come back, and we need volunteers because honestly, the best recruitment of volunteers are our volunteers. We have stuff out on lots of different online venues. I'm sure y'all are all aware it's hard to explain FIRST in a very short paragraph to somebody who is not familiar with the organization and to get them to sign up. We've done some changes in the website, the matchmaker quiz that we have out there on how to find a role, as opposed to giving somebody a list of 45 different roles and asking somebody who doesn't know a daggone thing about us to pick a role. And so trying to help get people in, find a good role for them, and move from there. And so thank you for your feedback, those of you guys who have provided feedback. We have listened, and we're trying to make that work. I will also ask a favor of all of us out there and in the room. When you go on social media and criticize key volunteers and put information out on key volunteers, it makes our volunteer coordinator's job really, really tough. Because they're all volunteers, we're all giving our time, we're all people, we're not all perfect. But it is hard to recruit when they're like, I don't want to do that job. The last person got flayed on, this channel, that channel. I don't know. I hear about all of them. I'm not on any of them. But I'm just saying that I would ask you to remember that and to help us, because our goal here is to provide a great program for our kids.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question, I'm going to give it to Leanne. How is FIRST Chesapeake working to increase the number of teams or schools in our program?
Okay, so we actually have an answer to this. And it came out of one of the meetings that we had with all of the local partners. It was funny. We usually meet at the right before the school season starts, and we pretty much meet all day. We have a working lunch. And so we've been talking about this problem of, gosh, we don't have the staff to, go into every single school, and how are we going to do this? And probably around like 2:30, we went, well, what about, don't the school boards have conferences? And this light bulb went off. And Nick Swain said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I go to these conferences. So it turns out that where we had been trying to hit every single school, and we were duplicating efforts in some places, because think about it, FLL is in middle school, so is FTC. We were duplicating efforts. Instead, why not go to the people who actually make these decisions? Go to the school boards, right? So there's a school board conference for Virginia. There's a school board conference for Maryland. And last year, we attended both of those. We worked with all of the program partners, so we showed the continuum of programs, and it was very successful. we had a number of school districts who were interested in learning more about the program, and so we're continuing those conversations. Of course, you know, we've got to get into their budgets and all of that, so it's not always something that happens overnight, but people are learning more about us. The great thing about it is, since we're all working together, we are showing the continuum of programs. We're showing the progression of programs, so folks know that FIRST has something for elementary schools, FIRST has something for middle schools, and FIRST has something for high schools. So it makes it easier for us to reach everyone in one spot or two spots for these conferences, and it also is better because we are reaching out to the decision makers, not just that one teacher who is trying to do it all on their own. So that is what we are doing right now, and it has been great. And I also want to give a shout out to Frankie and Isabel for the work that they've been doing in the Pulaski County schools, because they have brought it into all but, is it one? All but one school. Yeah, yeah, and that was just wonderful. So thank you. We would love to work with any team that would like to replicate that in any of the other school districts.
Thank you. Next question kind of follows up on the last thing that Sarah told us, but question is, how is FIRST Chesapeake working to streamline volunteer communication?
We are working on better training documentation. We are also working on an orientation packet that will be across programs to try and streamline the communication and the consistency of communication. We hear you. We know you get a lot of emails, and we're trying, as Leanne spoke to, we're trying to improve that process and make it better. So stay tuned.
Thank you. The next question is, how can we better value and engage our alumni?
So we love our alumni. And this past year, we just, and I'm ashamed to say this, just started really keeping track of how many alumni volunteer at each one of our events. And we knew it was a lot, but it really is very inspiring, very heartwarming how many alumni do show up for a lot of these events and work incredibly long hours over these weekends for us. In the past, we had piloted an alumni program. It was for 2 years, and we had done a survey, and one of the things that we had heard from alumni is what they liked most about FIRST Chesapeake, or about being an alumni, was the camaraderie. They liked coming together. They liked reconnecting. And so we did try having events near some of the universities to bring that alumni together. And some places it was very successful. Other places it was really hard. It was really hard to get people to come together. And I know everyone is busy. So I am going to kind of turn that question back on you. What do the alumni want? And are the alumni willing to form a subcommittee, work with us to create an alumni program that has value? Because we've tried, and we've tried with the resources that we have. One of the things we thought, oh gosh, we'll have an alumni lounge at the last championship, and we will bring in massage chairs, we'll have video games. I mean, I'm serious. We were going to have the popcorn machine. We were going to have everything, and everybody said, well, what we really like is we like to go back and see our teams. So everybody out there, if you are interested in being a part of this, please let us know, because we want to engage the alumni. We value the alumni. We need help in figuring out how to do this, though.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Ethan Bass, hi Internet, and I'm a Virginia Tech student, also a member of the newly formed Virginia Tech FIRST Alumni Organization. So we just started last year and starting to get the ball rolling. I can tell you that a lot of what attracted people to our organization was absolutely what you said, the camaraderie, being able to reconnect with people and talk about, great memories that we all had, because we're all, similar age. So we all went to like the same competitions and fought against competed against each other. It's not BattleBots, I know. Yeah. But also what we're working on is the jobs. We're all out here looking for internships, looking for opportunities. And here you guys are talking about the great sponsorships that you have from Booz Allen Hamilton, Newport News Shipbuilding. And I'm drooling because that's what we're after, is if we could possibly use these first connections to go in to your wonderful sponsors or partners and to be able to say, we know teamwork, we know communication, and to be able to get our foot in the door for potential job opportunities. I've been loving those emails that you guys have been sending out about FIRST alumni job opportunities, so please keep it coming. Thank you.
Yep.
I will tell you that our sponsors love FIRST alumni. There are actually some sponsors that have on their application to check the box if you are a FIRST alumni. It actually bumps you up in the interview process. We do tell all of our major sponsors that they can advertise all job listings and internship postings via, sorry guys, Constant Contact, our Constant Contact. But we also try to put the major ones on our alumni webpage as well. But I would like to hear any other ideas about ways that you think we might be able to introduce our sponsors to alumni, whether it's at events, which I've been told probably don't work because, again, you want to be in the pits, or is there something else that we need to do? Is there some sort of speed dating that we can do in Northern Virginia where all the alumni come together with all of our major sponsors and learn about opportunities?
One quick recommendation is Virginia Tech alumni has an association in Northern Virginia or in Richmond that those alumni can come together, and if that's something that you all could sponsor, alumni in this area at this event, non-competition event, but at this day and time, we're having a reunion of all FIRST alumni, and there are all the sponsors and people there for meet and greet.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me get to the one last question that came in ahead of time. And this one is, what program decisions, e.g. increasing the district championship to 2 fields, require advance board approval?
Okay, and I'm really glad this question came up because I think it's not clear to people all the time about the separation between the FIRST Chesapeake, or actually the Virginia FIRST Chesapeake board, and the staff. So with most organizations, when you have a board of directors, the board of directors is responsible for the overall governance, and they are responsible to pretty much make sure that you're not going into debt, that you're on budget, you're responsible for your finances, and identifying the overarching mission of the organization. The staff are the ones who make the programmatic decisions. We are the ones that are in the trenches. So when we have a problem with a volunteer, or not a problem, I'm sorry, a solution with a volunteer, or if we have like something that comes up at an event and there's a question about scoring or something like that, our board is not involved in any of that. That is not what the board does. The board is in charge of, like I said, the overarching mission and pretty much making sure that we don't get ourselves in trouble financially. So that is a difference. Here's another weird little fact for you. I'm hired by the board. I'm the only person at FIRST Chesapeake who works for and answers directly to the board. As the executive director, everyone else at FIRST Chesapeake is hired by and works for me. So I hope that's some clarification there.
Thank you very much. At this time, if there's any follow-up questions from all of you in attendance here, or anyone watching on the live feed that you would like to ask that was inspired by the responses that you've gotten from our panelists so far. So.
Henry Bass with FTC support. A lot of your answers, I'm just picking up. There's 185 FTC teams in First Chesapeake. There's 130 FRC teams. A lot of the answers about, hey, we're doing this. We're making this more available. There's tabs for our teams. What about FTC? And we have to keep asking, what about FTC? What about FTC? So what I hear you saying is that FTC is the more economical competition and that sort of thing. But yeah, we need more more resources there. I'd love to see an FTC listserv. It's been a very effective tool for the FLL teams. They communicate across thousands. Is it thousands? It's 10 times more teams in FLL than there are FTC. But that's just a way for any coach to get on and put something out there. And I know you don't like email, but some of the coaches can use that to augment that. So that might be a way to communicate. And that could equally apply to FRC, is an opt-in listserv that you can monitor. But I like the idea of getting our teams together with a generic team email. We can certainly do that. I would ask that you, when you say Team 401, instead say FRC Team 401, say FTC Team 4924, so that we know who we are. There might be two teams with the same numbers.
Real quick comment was when on your slide you said district championship. It took me a couple steps, if I was new to this, to realize you're referring to the FRC district championship, and there's no reference at all to FTC. So we really need to use those acronyms, more acronyms to spell it.
Did you want to respond to any of that, or?
I can usually only keep 3 things in my head at a time. So so if I don't cover this, let me know. The listserv is an excellent idea. It has been brought up in the past. We are aware that Virginia DC FLL does that. I think probably the reason that we haven't done it yet is because it is going to require a staff person to monitor it. And so during the competition season, I'm not sure that we have, right now, we have the capacity to do that. I would hope that in the future we can. You're making faces at me, Henry. Right. So since I didn't hand the microphone back to Henry, the response is that it doesn't seem that FLL does have a staff person monitoring it full time. We can certainly check back with them and see how they work it. The thing is, we want to make sure that we are not creating another outlet for incorrect information. So we want to make sure that we are checking on the information and checking on the messaging. And then with the delineating whether it's FRC, FTC, you're right. We need to do a better job of that. I will say if you ever see district in a title, it's going to be FRC because we're only the FRC district. As far as FLL is concerned, again, we try, but I don't know if we always succeed in making sure that folks know that that's Nick's event and it's FLL.
Thank you. We got a question in the back of the room.
Ralph Miller with the Stags. With the FRC District Championship, my understanding there was going to be 2 fields in Hampton. I was wondering what's the format going to be running there? Hopefully it won't be complete chaos going on.
There's organization in chaos.
It's going to be awesome. I can't give you a whole lot of information. We do have Ann Shade. Some of you know her. She used to be the regional director for Maryland. Ann Shade is going to be our event manager for this, and believe me, Ann is going to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. We are looking at the way Ontario does the 2 fields. We're using them somewhat as a model, but I'm not saying we're going to follow it completely. We are still working with headquarters to hammer out exactly how we're going to do this, but I can tell you that right now it sounds like what we're talking about doing is kind of ping-ponging with the fields. So while one field resets, the other field plays. Yeah. Yeah, like FTC. So yes.
Thank you. Is anyone else here? Preston.
Preston Childress, Team 401, and Team Advisory Committee. So to follow up on the district championship split fields thing, so would we be using the same division strength equation that like Ontario and Michigan have used? And then would there be award duplication, or would there be one quality award, for example, at the district championship?
Those are really good questions, and I'm not sure how much I can tell you right now. Again, we were just going over the logistics as far as the awards were concerned yesterday. So I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer right now, but we're working on it, and we'll get back to you.
And here you go.
Okay, so with regards to the social media policy, how would that apply to the First Chesapeake Slack? Because there is a First Chesapeake run, as far as I can tell, Slack that Ron maintains. So would that be considered like a closed media platform?
So we did talk about Slack a little bit in our last staff meeting, and we have loosely decided that Slack is going to be more of a communication tool between key volunteers and our staff, not a tool for general information or general policies.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked about the 3 different potential models, leadership structures, and so it sounded like the probable outcome was the second model, which was like multiple peer program delivery partners with one lead. Would Virginia First want to be the lead in that, or would you all prefer that one of the other partners take that role?
To further complicate things, the ecosystem territory model will not necessarily mirror our competition model that we have. So there is a possibility that our district competition model is FRC for us in Virginia, DC, Maryland, right? There is a possibility that our ecosystem territory model will not be the same. So it could be that we are just Virginia, or it could be that we are a number of, or any combination of the 3. First Chesapeake, I think, is very eager to be a leader in this and to be a part of this. But again, it's a team effort. We are working very hard to make sure that we are all equally represented with First headquarters and equally represented to the public. So we would definitely be happy to be a part in that leadership, but we don't want to say that we think we could be the only leader. So there's still a lot of questions that have to be answered.
Anybody else present here?
Ethan Bass again with FTC 4924. So in this area in particular, the New River Robotics Association is run by these 2 gentlemen here. And we act as a way for teams not associated with a school to obtain funding more easily, so that big sponsorship corporations can write off a check rather than to Linda of a team. It can rather write it to a 501c3 organization and put that in their books. So does First Chesapeake, have they ever considered operating in this sort of capacity, or would you have resources available to instruct others on how to operate as this sort of capacity to facilitate community organizations in terms of acquiring funds.
So we already do that in a way. If I think I understand what you're asking, so you're talking about how New River is kind of the New River Robotics is the fiscal partner. So they receive the funds because it's easier for the organization, for the sponsor to write one check than to try and keep track of all these little checks for $1,000 or $500. So they are the ones who receive the funds, and they are the ones that are responsible for dispersing the funds to the teams, correct? So we do that. We do have sponsors who come to us that say we would like to sponsor X number of teams, or we would like to sponsor teams within a 50-mile radius of our headquarters. Newport News Shipbuilding is one of them. And so we do have usually a selection process where we put that out as a grant and ask for the teams to apply. So it doesn't matter whether you're a school or a community, you apply, and it is usually needs-based, and then we make sure that the funds are dispersed. So far, except for not Rockwell Collins anymore, Collins Aerospace, I can't right now think of another sponsor that we have that is willing to give funds for the entire district, that it's not geographically specific. But that is what we have done in different parts of our district when we have had a sponsor come to us and ask for that relationship. And we understand it just makes their bookkeeping a whole lot easier. So.
Anyone else here? Gabe, do we have anyone? Okay, we don't have any online questions. Hand it back to you.
All right. Well, I mean, it kind of sounds like we've taken care of it for now. I'm sure that folks are going to think of questions when you're in the car, like me at 2 o'clock in the morning. You'll think of something. So really, you've got our contact information. We mean it. Let us know what your questions are. Let us know if you have ideas about ways that we can work on some of these ideas that have come up today, like the alumni, like the getting the teams in touch with each other. And just thank you all for being here, and thank you to Michael for putting up with us and getting all of this set up today.